quick discussion, on the board minutes. We did do an executive session last time and we need to have minutes on the executive session. Yeah, I mean, they're gonna be pretty simple. We'll talk about it in the other session today. So we'll add that to next month. Any comments? Did everybody have a chance to look at the expenditures?
Waiting for we.
Yeah.
Oh.
We just approved the agenda, yes.
Okay. I think there was a motion.
There was a motion, but a motion in a second. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed? All right.
Okay, so because of our minute, I'm sorry, because of our board policy and procedure, we always give a reason now for a motion so that we have this, history on the motion. So I am going to move that because at a recent county commissioner meeting, a member of the public illegally recorded an executive session. I move that we go into executive session, however, that we go into executive session in a separate meeting.
It's for
Personnel discussion.
do we have a separate room to go to? Okay, do I have a second? No. I'll second. Those in favor to go into executive session in a separate room, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. You have your signed. All right, we are back in session out of executive session. And approval of consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion for the agenda.
I'll second.
Got a second? Any discussion? Those in favor? Say aye. Those opposed? Next up is correspondence. I just want to mention a correspondence that Anita and I received from, Taylor Pajuin. Is that how you say her last name? It was a nice little note. She gave a public comment last time and offered an opportunity to visit with Anita and myself. So we'll be having a conversation. Any other correspondence, Anita? Or anybody else in the board? All right. Moving on to public comment. Before we have public comment, we have quite a few public here today. I just want to address the criteria that I have on the back of the agenda. Speakers will have time limits. You cannot donate your unused time to someone else. I am going to limit it today because last time we had a lot of people talking and we didn't get out till really late. So I will limit the number of people speaking. Also, if you have a complaint, we have a form for you to fill out, so we're not going to take complaints today. Also, if you have contested material, we have a form for you to fill out and we won't be hearing those kind of comments today. So, anybody wish to speak to the? I'm sorry, yes.
And that can be just for the consideration that the individual who speaks, that they identify themselves and get it there in speaking individually, or as a member of a nonprofit or a member of an organization. And they make comments, so we reflect that in the meetings.
And again, if you've already spoke to an issue, I'm going to ask if you don't speak again because we do have that on record. So, yes. That's fine. You can give us your name and.
Okay, I'm Joan Jones Lander. Anyhow, a few years ago, I bought a set of books for my grandchildren called the Tuttle Twins. And these books teach the principles of economics and free enterprise, what made America free and prosperous. I then bought another set just to have to loan out to friends, and their children told me how much they enjoyed them. And then I thought it would be a great idea to buy a set for the Lander Library, so it would be available to other families. I did, and our library director, Anita Markle, told me that she would have to read them before putting them on the shelf. After a few months, she finally approved them. Anyhow, since then, I found out that our county libraries are making very pornographic books available to our youth using our money. And taxes are going way up. It made me wonder who read and approved these books. I then found the library organizational and personnel policies on page 10. It said, the board of directors of the Fremont County Library System has delegated the responsibility of collection development within the scope of its budget to the library director and library staff. So what is the guiding star of the library staff? That is found on the same page. FCLS adheres to the 7 tenets of the Freedom to Read statement from the American Library Association Freedom to Read Foundation. Its first tenet says, it is in the public interest for publishers and librarians to make available the widest diversity of views and expressions, including those that are unorthodox, unpopular, or considered dangerous by the majority. The ALA has accomplished its goal in Fremont County. We have books available to our children that the majority do consider dangerous. John Adams said, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. The American Library Association seems determined to destroy the morals of our youth. It is not surprising that in April of 2022, the ALA elected Emily Drabinsky to be their latest president, knowing that she is a self-proclaimed Marxist. What I am recommending is that we break away altogether from the American Library Association and their destructive guidelines and actually begin the process immediately and have it completed by the end of the year. Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm sorry, you talked last time, were you gonna say anything different?
Yes.
Okay. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Karen Wetzel. I'm also from Lander. This morning I wanted to address a couple of things that did happen in the last meeting where Sarah Riley spoke about, and I quote, the book actually might be educational for a boy who is looking to get into a relationship with another boy and does not know that he has the right to ask for consent, as Ms. Wetzel just explained in that really great segment she just read. What I read about was an underage child having sex with an adult. The child asked the adult to stop because, wow, it hurt. And instead of stopping, the man continued but said, I'll go slower. Then we go back to the child.
This sounds like, that can be taken care of
Okay,
in a contested book. So if
Well,
you
that's-
do that.
let me talk about something else then. I would like to, talk about the movies that were shown that Ms. Riley said was PG.
I'm sorry,
And
that,
again,
we did not.
they're not PG, they're unrated.
No, they were rated.
I have the movie right here.
Good, because I looked it up and they were rated but that was not library. So do you have anything else?
I do. I will not be filing a complaint after learning that you as a board, or at least the library director, insists that we file a separate complaint for each book. That is ludicrous. You have dozens of inappropriate books on your shelves, not to mention a couple of child porn DVDs. I have one of them right here. I will not be wasting my time or energy, which is just as important as yours, on hours of paperwork that we know all too well gets shoved under a table or into the trash. I can give you examples at the next meeting, but I have spoken to many people who have filed complaints. And I also would like to remind you that child porn is illegal. It doesn't matter if it's gay or if it's straight. Child porn is illegal, and we'd like to have it removed from the library. And we would also like you to discontinue your association with the American Library Association.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One last comment. Over here. Cool. Yes, you have something different than what has already been said.
Yeah, this is about a study.
Okay.
There's no need to speak up.
We just need to limit our time.
Mike says speak out.
Oh, okay.
Please state your name.
My name is Troy Jones. I'm from Lander and I represent myself. I've been a medical doctor for 41 years. I come here today regarding obscene and pornographic material in public libraries. I reference a study published in the American College of Pediatricians Journal in June of 2016. This is just one of many similar studies. This one is entitled "The Impact of Pornography on Children." This study shows that consumption of pornography is associated with many negative emotional, psychological, and physical health outcomes. For those who use pornographic material, they found increased rates of depression, anxiety, acting out, violent behavior, younger age of sexual activity, sexual promiscuity, increased risk of teen pregnancy, and a distorted view a distorted view of relationships between women. For adults, pornography results in increased likelihood of divorce, which also is harmful to children. I can personally verify that these problems are a huge cost to society. The American College of Pediatricians has urged physicians to communicate the risk of pornographic use to patients and to their families, and to offer resources both to protect children from pornographic material and to treat individuals suffering from its negative effects. The declared purpose of the American College of Pediatricians is to, quote, enable all children to reach their optimal physical and emotional health and well-being, end quote. My question is, do our libraries support that purpose, or will our libraries continue to contribute to children's depression, anxiety, acting out, violent behavior, etc., at taxpayer expense? Thanks.
Thank you. One last comment. Online, do I have a comment? Okay, I appreciate your comments. We'll go ahead and have one here.
I'm sorry, like to say that Linda B. Dow, representing myself, but also from the board member and longtime supporter of libraries, that our libraries should be allowed to provide information to anybody who walks in the door, whatever kind of information they're looking for. And I would rather have had my teenagers learn about sex from a book than in the backseat of a car.
I'm sure.
Yes,
Just to make one of it. My name is John Anderson, I'm treasurer of the school. And I'm just gonna say that the exercise of the public discussion is that we're all it is our intent, the members of this board, to be effective with all individual views, whether they're agreeable or not, to our own personal efforts. But we live in a wonderful country that gives us that opportunity. I'm not gonna get on a soapbox. But the process of which we were going through, I think, is infinitely better than the cashiering of directors and all the things that we've seen that are going around in the country as the process in which we can get to where we're all citizens of this county to get to where we have a better library system, a responsive library system, but also to guarantee the rights. So there is not the tyranny of the majority or the tyranny of the minority. So I thank you all for being part of this, and we will prosecute our job as well as you can. She were offering their thoughts. So respect is the Bible. Thank you.
moving on to reports roundtable. Mike, you're our new liaison. Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll take the handcuffs out.
Yeah, geez, yeah, I think the role of liaison. To be one that can communicate back and forth between boards. Certainly not here to manage. I've been a liaison to the library before, so I'm certainly not here to, correct you or anything of that nature. But provide you insight of, Yeah, my sense of how the board's going to react to one thing or another and communicate what is happening here. I personally believe that this discussion about these books is super important. You know, I think some people automatically think we're not listening, but I can tell you that several of us are listening very deeply to the conversation. I know we're very concerned about it. And so I'm glad we're getting this out on the table. I think the more we communicate what the process is and the scrutiny of that process is important. So when the folks who are listening in from the audience hear that, I look forward to making sure they're heard through this process, and because it's important, and that's all I can say. So
Just real quick, I want Anita to kind of go through the process of contestant books. Just exactly what happens when she gets a particular request for review of a book, if you don't mind, Anita. And it needs to be specific. It can't just be a broad, get rid of these kind of books. It needs specifics, what's the author, what's the title of the book, and have you read the book? A lot of times people can just pull, quotation marks off the internet of a website that wants to ban books, but if you haven't read it, there's context. And that's one of the things we want to make sure that people are aware of. Maybe there's a segment in a book that's objectable, but in the context of the whole, it may not. So.
Hold on, wasn't ready for that.
Sorry, Anita, just so that we can educate our folks.
And I think one of the other things that's important to remember is that we have a very diverse county. It's a large county. There's a lot of diversity in terms of what people want to read or don't. There's a lot of books I personally don't want to read, make me uncomfortable. I don't like them, but other people do. And I think we're here to make available information for all of the members of the county. And I think that's, that's part of our mission. I mean, and specifically the mission of the Fremont County Library System is to enrich lives by making library resources freely available to all for educational, cultural, and recreational needs. So that our criteria are broader than I think people who have a very specific cultural, religious, whatever intent may be comfortable with, but it's because our responsibility is to the entire county, not just to one group of people. It needed to find them.
Can I just say something briefly though? I think, given our discussion last month though, about, we decided to, we voted to ban child pornography or take child out of the policy, so it's just ban pornography. And I think that there are instances where there may be contextual disagreements about what is porn and what isn't, but there are very specific passages in some books that are exactly child porn. And when those are identifiable, I think it would be pretty easy to get rid of them. And I don't know why we don't.
Well, we haven't probably had the specific, form filled out for us to review. It is my question.
Maybe we don't know because they haven't been brought to us. We don't see the complaints. So
Anyway, Anita's gonna speak to that.
So our challenge materials procedure, number 1, when a patron raises an objection to any materials in the library collection, A, library staff and or the library manager are encouraged to listen to the patron's concerns about the material. B, library staff will ask if the patron desires to speak with the library manager. C, library staff and or the library manager will offer the patron a copy of the FCLS materials acquisition policy and engage in respectful dialogue. Number 2, if the patron wishes to file a formal complaint about any material in the library collection, the library manager will explain the process and provide the patron with the FCLS Citizens Request for Reconsideration of Library Materials packet. Number 3, the formal review will not go forward until the written form is received.
The library manager or library director may informally review the material in question at their discretion. Number 4, the patrons completed citizens' request for reconsideration of library materials form, and the material in question will be given to the library manager of the patron's home branch and to the library director. Number 5, the challenged material will be objectively reviewed by the library director and library managers. Number 6, after final review by the library director, the following actions will be taken. A, the library director will provide a written decision with explanation to the patron. B, the library director will inform the complainant that the decision may be appealed to the library board of directors. C, the library director will provide a written summary to the library board of the citizen's request for reconsideration of library materials and the decision. Number 7, if the patron wishes to appeal the decision to the library board of directors, he or she will request time on the next board meeting agenda. Number 8, the library director will share all materials with the library board of directors, including the original citizen's request for reconsideration of library materials form, the library's policies and procedures, and review results. If needed, the library will enlist support from the Wyoming Library Association and the American Library Association Office of Intellectual Freedom. Number 9, the library board of directors will make a decision on the appealed citizens' request for relocation of or reconsideration of library materials and will inform the patron of their decision and reasoning behind it. Number 10, the conclusion reached is to remain in effect. And this was revised, updated December 2022.
Yes.
So Mike, I think, I know you may not be, because this is sort of after your original tenure, but I think we've developed a really thorough review system, that is there available. And I think my frustration is that instead of people I think recently I've been concerned about some materials, but instead of addressing it through the process and through the procedure, they've been coming to, and you may have missed this because you were overseas, but they've been coming to the county commissioners and reading excerpts from books, or here, instead of going through what I like to see are following policy and procedures. So
just to speak to that, yes, we've tried to push that back to the board. Which I think we've clearly communicated that let's start here. Let's make sure we go through the review process. I'm glad to hear there is an appeal to the board. A couple things that jumped out at me is, do you have any timelines for a response? If this is 6 months later, tempers can rise. So like if it's a month, it's 3 weeks. I think there should be some deadlines on what that review process is. The second thing that jumped out at me is, as you go through the director and manager's review, what is your criteria? I mean, it seems to me that whether that needs to be in the process, it seems like those guidelines should, and maybe they are, but I think making those aware, making people aware of what those are, and how those decisions get made. To me, it's pretty frustrating when you go through and say, hey, I find this material objectionable. And then you said, we don't, thanks. It's gotta be more than that. It's gotta be, and so I think awareness of what that is important.
Before I
Good.
call on a board member, the director and I have had this conversation and we are going to try to address that in December. At the December meeting, but go ahead.
So
Like policy?
communicate.
Their criteria.
Well, no, but we do have criteria, acquisition criteria already there, very clear. And I think, again, this goes back to communication, that it needs to be clearer on the website. Here's the challenge and here are the acquisition policies. And not that it's, buried in our policy and procedure manual, but it's there. There's a whole, and I think you need to take a look at it. There is a policy for acquisitions and a procedure for acquisitions.
Yeah, I think more visible, those are.
But I think, and I think communication is the issue.
Go ahead, Kristen.
So I would kind of pulling off what you said, I do think that we need to make the complaint form available easily on the website. I have not looked on the new website to see if I could find it. It wasn't on the old one. But I do think that needs to be accessible online. I think it looks like we're trying to discourage people when they have to come in, meet with the person at the desk, ask for the form. I mean, everything's available online now. And then my second question is every book that we procure read by somebody before we procure it?
No, we order,
I wouldn't think, I would think it would take 1,000 hours to do that, but I just wondered, it sounds like. There was some, at points, people said stuff had to be read first or whatever, I just wondered. Not every book is read, is it?
not every book is read because that's not practical. But let me provide an example for everybody that, you know, we are conscientious about the job that we're doing. And there's a book, every list that I have seen in the last couple of years, lists of books that are on in the national conversation or the local conversation that people object to. I look it up and see if we have it in our collection. And I have read a lot of books that have been on those lists. And, you know, there was one book that came to my attention, and it was one that we did have in our collection. And actually, I didn't have to read it because I started just working through our criteria for authorship, for publisher, for the criteria that we have, reviews. And the book didn't make it past our criteria for authorship, and the book got pulled. We took it out of the collection because it did not meet our criteria. So we're conscientious about this process, but if you've got a concern about a book, you have to follow the process, because often you've got to read it to know why it has a legitimate place in the collection. So,
John?
I'm gonna, hopefully I'm gonna answer part of what Mike's concern was. It's only in informational sense. That is, when we have a FOIA request, there's a statutory timeframe for that to be effective. When it comes to this process, the idea of manpower and the like to do that, what is reasonable, what is expedient, and those things have yet to be processed. But I can tell you that this is what we're working on, to figure out how long it's going to take to do this. We don't want to be inundated with frivolous concerns, but if one follows the process, there has to be, by this board's responsibility, an assurity that process is going to be upheld at our end, to have it so that that is addressed.
right.
We don't want any frivolous, it's like, nobody likes to have 1,000 FOIAs in a week, but we've electronically been able to deal with it. Unfortunately, in this situation, as Mike would know, we have to do a process. And the idea is, it isn't like we have to go until we get the answer we want, but we have to have people feel that they are heard in that process, and that this is reflective of what we believe is standard. Now, that is the debate of what is a standardized view as to what our criteria is in that ethereal sense. But in the administration of a response to somebody's request, we do have to come up, and it's going to not be overnight, it's going to take some time, but we should be able to figure out what has been successful in other locations of similar size and staffing and the like, so that we can do those things. I don't want to go long on this, but I think that's what Mike was asking us. We have to have it so that we don't look like we're in the process. And it sounds like optics, but it's not. It's about the process, that we don't look like we're burying it. We have to have a time frame. I think that'll happen over a period of time.
I will also kind of reiterate what Anita just said. She is very proactive. She looks at those lists and then she'll pull them, and I'll go up into her office and we'll have a discussion, and she's got the book right there and she's reading it. She's trying to decide, is this the best fit for our library? So be aware that she's aware of those books. Let me ask Marta, and then I'll get to you, Sherry.
I have two questions. So, Anita, just so to be clear on the complaints, there have been none that have reached a point where people have asked to have here.
Thank you. Now, in the last, like 2 years, I think there have been 3. 2 individuals, one submitted 2 requests for reconsiderations on particular books. And then there was another person in another title. And so we went through the process and replied to those, and there was not a request for appeal.
Okay.
Right.
So my second issue is just as far as the policy is concerned about policy acquisition. I mean, that was cut and pasted from the ALA. To me, it seems more like a, 10 points on what is our philosophy of acquisition, rather not, instead of this is how we decide to buy. I mean, I don't know if the library is actually just using ALA points to decide what it wants to buy. I'd say that very clearly the ALA's priorities are not the community standards of our community. And so I think that's worth looking at.
We will discuss that in December.
Chairperson and Commissioner Jones and the audience, so part of our criteria, and it is in our policy and procedure, we also use professional journals when we're doing collection development. And here's what we use: Kirkus, the library journal, the school library journal, VOYA, which stands for Voice of Youth Advocates, and Book List. That's how we decide to purchase what we do for our collection development. And we also take patrons' suggestions, but we just don't automatically put that in our purchase. We go and use our professional journals to find out about the suggestion. So it's not willy-nilly or loose. When we work on collection development, it's taken very seriously, and we look at the county as a whole and not a particular percentage of the communities.
Good, thanks, Sharon. Yes, Anita.
And we did a review of our materials acquisition procedure. Like in January of this year of
Oh, was it?
2023. Is when I shared that with the board. And so we have looked over that, and we've looked at the acquisitions, we've looked at all parts of this process, from acquisition to reconsideration, because of what's been occurring the last couple of years. And so, Mike, there is a time frame on the citizens request form with 30 days. That an initial response will be received. The patron will receive a response within 30 days. So it has been a healthy process to examine how we do it and why. What are our collection development goals? And just from our procedure document, our collection development goals, there are 3 things: provide materials in appropriate formats for people of all ages, make available materials that meet the educational, cultural, recreational, and informational needs of the public, and maintain a balanced collection of books of permanent value and of current interest within the scope of our budget.
Any other comments, Mike?
No, I was kind of searching through your website, looking for, so I see your big policy and it says your materials complaint policy, but when I get down there, I don't see it. And so I see acquisition, communication. So to her point, when she said how easy is it, it took me a little bit, but I found right on the front page, there is a policy link, so you link to that, and here's your whole library policy, which probably has a lot of the information you're saying or you're talking about, but it takes a little scrolling, and I haven't found so the exact policy that you're talking about, complaints, it doesn't, is it in that policy?
The request for reconsideration form
Is not in.
is not currently
So
posted on the website.
That's part of
so to her point, how easy is that? I am a big fan of reducing clicks to find information. And ours is terrible, so I'm on a pulpit here, but the county sucks too. I can say sucks, anyway. So.
Freedom of speech.
Yeah, so you know what I mean? I mean, it's a good point to how do we navigate through this? And how do we know we're heard? And if we don't like the answer, how do we appeal? That kind of stuff is really gold, especially nowadays. I mean, that's where we are, so. Anyway.
Just a quick thing, and that's in the mechanics of this, to be more responsive, and that is, well, I think everything should be electronic, and it should be away from paper, even though my family was in the paper business. Is that we should have it, so a laminated copy of our process is on each desk, and every employee that mans that desk has the ability to demonstrate that to the individuals that have that concern, just to have it, because it's the non-electronic alternative. So people have to feel like they have been heard or are understanding that we're willing to give information.
Yeah. Did you have?
Oh, just on our website, you know, at the bottom, the contact us link takes a person to the patron communication policy that they can look at, and then there's also an online form that they can fill out for a suggestion, comment, or complaint. So, I mean, there is a mechanism there for communicating, and it does mention to submit comments regarding library materials, please contact your home branch for a request for reconsideration of library materials form. And that the way it is like this right now is because we really want it to start with, we really want it to start with a personal contact. And usually, just in our history with the library, you know, working with patrons, and they bring us something and we talk about it. And, you know, things don't end up in the trash, and we don't disregard people's concerns. And I know I can remember conversations with parents about, you know, there's an illustration in this book that's in the children's department, and I'm worried about it. And we have relocated things to young adults. So but we want it to be more of a personal thing and not
Combative?
not combative, yeah. So anyway.
Okay.
That's all.
Anything else? Okay, let's move on to the director and assistant director reports. Anything else you want to add? Those reports?
And just so the public knows, those reports are always published online along with the minutes, so you can access those.
Madam Chair, before we get there, I just want to mention that we should, as a board, appreciate that our Commissioner Mike Jones is being active in his participation here. That's not a reflection on the previous latest on, but Mike, thank you for being on doing this. We'll make sure that the time is well spent and it's not wasted. Okay.
Having fun now.
Thank you, Madam.
Now, I did want to take a minute to acknowledge Sherry. This is her last board meeting, and she'll be retiring in a couple weeks. Well, less than a couple weeks. And it's been, I don't know, it's just been a privilege. And the last 3 years of our work has been very interesting and stressful with COVID and budget cuts, and well, those two things. And the ripple effects of those two things have been really challenging for our library system. And it's been great to just grow as leaders together. And Sherry, you've made an impact on our library system, and thank you for that. And I just want to highlight that, you know, Sherry Haskins was the first one to, like in the nation, to introduce gaming as a program. And at that time when technology was such, so, you know, bringing kids into the library and engaging with them through their interests. And she traveled to all kinds of conferences around the nation to speak about that and share that. And that's just one of many things that you've contributed, Sherry. I appreciate it.
Sherry, what I just want to say something real quick is her ability to wrestle up a bunch of bus tickets to get people into the library, I think is phenomenal. So thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you.
You will be missed. Appreciate your efforts. Unfinished business. We have the meeting room policy. I think Anita sent out that information. There was just a few wording differences.
I think, yeah, Nathan Maxton really he just recommended the addition of one sentence to, yeah, to the patron code of conduct policy. So, his addition was, number 11, using profanity in common areas is prohibited. Library meeting rooms are not considered common areas when used by entities other than the Fremont County Library. So that was his recommendation, and he had no further recommendations for the meeting room policy.
So I would like to move, and this motion is, because of the recommendation of our deputy county attorney to add to patron code of conduct policy number 11, library meeting rooms are not considered common areas when used by entities other than the Fremont County Library, period.
Oh, second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion about the change in number 11 about defining common areas? We'll go ahead and call for the question. Those in favor of changing number 11, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Great. Patron code of conduct, that was meeting room policy. Patrons- That was patron.
Yeah.
I would move to accept the meeting room policy as being motion at the last meeting, since there were no changes from Mr. Maxon.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve of the meeting room policy as defined at the October meeting. Same.
Do we have, I mean, we already approved it at the last meeting and then it went.
It was conditional.
And then.
Was it conditional on the motion?
On Nathan's.
So the final draft was conditional on review from the county attorney.
Okay, but
So
we
then-
have,
He didn't make any changes to it.
right, so do we have to, since we approved it, I thought we have to move to approve it again.
I thought we had to move to send it out for public. That's
think
what I
that's-
think this motion is, then it goes out
Okay.
to the
Then I'm-
5 day or whatever.
Just reaffirming.
Perfect.
Motions.
All right, so you're moving to send it out for public comment.
To, that we approve it as a board, and then it goes, yeah, through the county approval process for.
So we're not moving to send it out, your motion was just to approve it.
We approved it, and then it's in the.
Well, then that's-
Process.
Yeah,
the
and
next-
that's correct. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so the motion is just the approval.
To approve the meeting room policy.
As amended at the last meeting.
Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say. All right, that has been moved and seconded and passed. Internet filter, recommendations from Kevin Schultz. We received an email about that, or a document about that. Anita, you wanna guide us through that, or? I have some concerns, but I wanna give you an opportunity to,
Well, this is really Kevin's,
recommendation.
just, yeah, and then Kristen, you had sent, the information from your IT consultant with, so the IT consultant for the company.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it works for a bunch of different
Right.
companies, but yeah.
Yeah, and so and Kevin had written this before receiving that, but he's looking at it, and I think really he's willing to look at other software possibilities.
Well, I would say the main thing with the one I sent is cost wise, it compares to what Kevin had, mine was quite a bit cheaper. But it is targeted to municipalities. I tried to look up this one, I'm not an IT person, but
And then
I didn't find much about this one online, so I don't know, I couldn't speak to it.
So I think, so Meraki, I think his main point is if the board chooses to go forward with some level of internet filtering, this is, this utilizes our current firewall, and it's just upgrading the license to do more. And
So I think for me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Karen.
I'm sorry. Speaking of filtering, need some filter in my mouth. My concern is this is a filter that's gonna be on the firewall. so that it's gonna affect every computer. And interesting to me was also every personal device, whether it's your cell phone or your personal computer that's hooked into the Wi-Fi, because it's all based
It's
on.
network.
Yes, the network is based on our network firewall and the extension of that. So I think we need to get information from Kevin about who decides what's going to be filtered. Can I still look up breastfeeding? You know, can I look up, and I bring this up because it's, you know, touchy, something like somebody wants to come in and look up genital warts, like those kinds of things in a library where we're supposed to be allowing information, need to be things that can get through this kind of firewall. So I think, to me, this seems like a nice system in that it's already on the county system and it's just an upgrade. But we have to figure out the specifics, and then also who, let's say it does block something reasonable like breastfeeding. How do you get around that? What is the time for the employees? You know, which employees are gonna have the training to do that? Can a library employee deal with that, or does that go back to the county? And how much of a drain is that on the county personnel to say, okay, we're gonna unblock this site so you can look up breastfeeding?
And
Yeah.
I think the answer to that question is that's a Kevin level change.
Right.
He's the one who would make that change. Now, deciding to make the change doesn't necessarily mean that's Kevin, it's just he does the practical
Right.
steps involved.
So, but then onto the county, I'm sorry, so since this is a county system that we're looking at, what I would like to have is have Kevin come and give us a talk on this specific filter, how it would work in our system, how many time that would take, and how much of librarian time that would take to implement, and how we adjust the level of the filtration.
Yeah, so the one I sent to him, I can answer some of those questions on the software I sent to him. It would send a message to the front desk or to all of the desks at the library that said computer number 102 just accessed a site that is the filter caught. So it would be as simple as, if it was genital warts, it would be as simple as the librarian at the front desk clicking, okay, it can go through. It wouldn't involve Kevin at all. Once Kevin set it up, we could set it up to notify Kevin, but ideally it would notify whoever was at the desk.
So the patron then, with this really embarrassing question about either.
So you can set it up either way. The
Well, the-
patron can get a message that says this site is filtered. And if you wanna you can go to the front desk. Or it can automatically, it can never even let the patron know. It'll just slow down, like it's having a hard time loading. It'll go to the Sherry and say, this patron's on this website, and Sherry can look at the website and go, well, that's WebMD. And just click OK.
I
Or,
don't, and so.
so
that's
you
what
can
my-
set it up either way.
Right, and there's my sort of concern, somebody's looking about, you know, wanting to learn about breastfeeding, now they're totally.
The other
qualified.
thing is, this filter system supposedly, there again, I'm not an IT guy, but I spent a lot of time on the phone with my IT guy. This system, and he called it the most intuitive filtering he has ever used, and he explained it to me like a credit card. But every store that you go to has a code that they pay taxes on, you know, their primary business is liquor, their primary business is food service, whatever. The internet is essentially the same way. I don't know if it's the IP address, if it's but this system is very intuitive. He said that and he had me try, he had me get on my work computer and I typed in breastfeeding, I typed in genital, I typed in some stuff that was, and it didn't do anything to me, it loaded right up, and he said, I never got a message from any of that. And then we typed in Britney Spears naked boobs. And I did this on my work computer because they use this filtering system. And my computer it acted like my internet was out. And then he showed me on his computer, RP LTS 77 computer just accessed one. And so,
Well, and because
it was very cool, really. I mean, he said, try it. get on your computer and try it.
And then there was that one other thing that, I sent you about the issue of, not blocking, whatever it was, decrypting the HTTPS, does that one?
Yeah, I don't know, I thought I had written some notes about that, but I can't, it may have been, we sent Kevin a packet
Okay,
of stuff, and it may have been in the email sent, but the big deal is that it could level the filtering for the adult computers versus kid computers. And because they offer discounts to municipalities, he said, I don't mess with it, he said, I filter myself. Because I'm managing your network, but he said a municipality can load a kind of scripted thing that they offer, and then you can tweak it, but basically says, is this an adult computer, is this a teenage computer? Right on their website, it says, are you a public library, and you can go, and I guess they have these packages. Now, I didn't look at that because I had to put something in my cart in order to be able to see those specific things.
and to me, I was, I'm interested in looking at something just for the kid, for the kid computers, so that, yeah.
That's my concern with the Meraki, excuse me, that's everybody. And I thought we talked about that we would like to have filtering on the kids and the teen computers, not the adult.
I was not here to.
That's right, you were, John, did you have a comment?
Yeah, that's like kind of, obviously, we're just on, you're not up here, honestly, this is actually about recommendation by the IT guy in the county. I just want to understand something, the two questions I have, first of all, is our impetus to solve our problem with this issue of internet misuse. Are we taking that as being, our initiative only for the library system per se, or was the extension of this to the county in general? And if that's to the county in general, that goes high. So we're not looking at any, we're not going to, we don't decide it obviously, but his efforts are not to be instructed in any fashion to deal with the county as a whole. Correct?
No, this is.
All right,
this
that-
is what-
Very specific letter about that.
That's what I
Yeah.
thought. That's good, because I think
And the
that
question-
he shouldn't be in the approach of anything, at least as representatives of the library. The second thing is this, is that any request from the county IT guy has to be that we request performance of the product that is being proffered with similar library systems of our size in our region. Because we should have some feedback from people that have been using these things other than the vendor. Now, that may be part of the due diligence anyway. But as far as I'm concerned, without having the experiences of similar or library systems in the public as we are, then we would be just doing it by preference that is on our form. So I think we need to do that. That would be right.
You get a presentation from someone on this company.
But that's other not to rely on a vendor.
It would be my impression that our job is to decide what we're filtering as a board. Our job would be, are we filtering and what are we filtering, and can we afford a system? And it would be Kevin's purview to say, I can or cannot implement this system, and I do or do not have the resources to manage this system. As far as, he's gonna have to, we're not gonna be the ones sticking it in the computer and making it work, so.
No, but there's one more step with that, which I think is really important, is somebody has to get designated to look at the different systems. And, decide what.
And that's not us, that's gotta be Kevin.
Kevin has to make the final determination. All we can do is bring him options, I would think, and he has to make the determination. It's his job.
Anita?
And I think, Kristen, you just mentioned this, that what needs to happen first is that you all need to discuss what you want the library systems policy to be. So, and then the technical part, technical choices are gonna depend on what you guys decide, and that's, I guess the next thing on the agenda, and then the questions for you all to consider in changing the policy. Because it's definitely a policy change. And what Kevin does is just gonna depend totally on what you guys determined with the new policy. So that is the first thing.
So we have to look at our internet use policy first. And determine what level of integration we want our children to be, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Within our policy.
Right, you know, really making a statement. In the FCLF does filter if that's the route you choose to go, and then what specifically is being filtered.
So I was, because I'm gonna be honest with everybody, if anything comes up, I look into the policy handbook. And see, okay, where is this talked about? If we go to page 7 on our general policies. It talks about a lot of stuff. That we need to re-look at, and this is the Library Bill of Rights. That has been, let's see, revised in January of 2023. Do we still affirm that we're, going to make information easily accessible to people? Just, I don't know.
I would suggest that, I think, this is stuff that really needs to be thought about.
Yeah, it does.
And I think it would be helpful if perhaps our illustrious chair would get a packet of, okay, here are the things, everybody needs to think about in terms of the internet policy, our general policy, that we need to think about what needs to get modified if we want to do filtering on children or filtering on everybody. And then I think maybe we need to have a work group instead of, at the whole meeting, to sit down with a work session and try and work through this to see kind of what things we want to change. And then we, bring it up in a meeting, okay, here's what we think we want to change, because I think we really need to sit down, and this is really kind of critical change in that we're going to be restricting information from the general public. And I think that's going to be probably a lot easier when we're dealing with kids than when we're dealing with the general public. And I think we just need to be really careful and really think this out before we jump on something. That would be my recommendation.
And along with that, we're doing a gut punch because of one incident. And prior to that one incident, you said 2018 was the most recent incident that you had to deal with. So it's not like this is a common problem. And my question is, and Nita brought it up, is, can we, is there other ways to deal with this problem other than filtering? And that's something we need to think about. Maybe it's better supervision of computer labs of, young adults. I don't know. But we need to look at it holistic. I'm sorry.
I think she.
Well, I don't think it was just that one incident in 2018. I mean, Sherry, you just talked about how you find kids with their phones all the time at the same point. You tell them to leave. So it's not a one-off what happened recently with Christy Hernandez in Lander. I think that it happens pretty frequently, it sounds like.
But that's on their private phones.
Yeah, but it's.
That's part of it. I'm just gonna bring this up, it's not alarmist at all, I think Mike could hear this too, and that is that we're dealing with things to which we are talking about mechanical means to address it, which we also have a legal consideration, and I know the ACLU has had many suits against library systems in the East, some of the Midwest, when they would bridge the access to material that they hammer down. They've got one department that really, they raise a lot of money for it, they spend a lot of money for it. My question is, how do we avoid outside agency of having third parties come in and hammer us on these things? So these things have to be considerably better. In a way, I think that we should find out the mechanical possibilities. And I will reiterate about the idea of having comparable consumers using them in public libraries, which ones work But the landscape is going to be a political consideration, a legal consideration, in addition to the technological one. So I think we're gonna have to be much more mindful about this process will probably take half of the calendar year. I think to do it is addressing the question.
And we need to be careful in considering our options, yes.
I would agree that we need to take some time and consider what we want to do and write. Make it airtight or whatever you want to say, but I would just, for the record, I would say, in my own opinion, as a member of the board, to me, this situation as a whole and what we offer material wise and filtering wise and everything at the library, to me personally, is not a political issue or a legal issue. It's about us making an informed decision about what's right for our community, and whatever happens after that point, we thoughtfully did what we thought was right for our community. And I realize that part of a board's job or anyone's job is to look at legal considerations and all that, but I don't think we should make decisions that are not in the best interest of the community as a whole, because we're worried about a lawsuit from someone that's extreme one way or someone that's extreme another way. I think that we've been appointed to make decisions that we think are right for our community. And that's just my personal note on that.
I have to respond to that, which I'm probably 99.9% agreement. Mike would remember this when they had the Fair Voting Rights Act decision by Magistrate Johnson in the Denver federal court. Brian Barr went off and ended up doing an appeal that was in excess of the amount of money that we had for doing those appeals. And this county was impoverished by $458,000 because of the actions of somebody who was using a political agenda that was within it, which was our county attorney. Those monies are a serious thing. So when I say that, so when I say it's a concern from a political or a legal standpoint, it's the fact is that we were injured to the fact that $500,000 because of the ardor of a person who used a philosophy, political philosophy in his office. And while we're an offline department, these considerations put a lot of people in bad light when we do things like that. I'm just asking for due diligence.
And I agree that, you can't just. Whatever.
Madam Chair, there are a lot of things that are nailed down in terms of legality around this subject, but I can tell you right now that in the 5th Judicial Court, there's some rulings that are going to get to the Supreme Court and that are going to that already cast a different light on this. So it's an ever-moving target, and it's really complicated. I don't know why I nerded out on that, but it's moving and it could move, and the courts really have the ultimate in say on some of this. But anyway, it's a tough target. I appreciate the due diligence, but it is it's interesting.
So what I would suggest that we do, Anita sent out a bunch of questions. Let's take some time, and I know I read through them, but I really didn't give it some
Same here.
proper consideration and, a lot of thought on it. Let's take some time, let's answer those questions, and maybe when we meet back, we can go over and visit more about.
Share everybody to review the internet policy.
Exactly.
And if you have a draft or a shot at changes or no changes you want to be made, make comments on it, so everybody can see where we all at on that.
Yeah, I circled our internet use policy revision discussion. I think we're going to deal with that discussion because it goes hand in hand with our filtering, so. And you, go ahead, Perry. No, it's
Yeah. Could we get Kevin Schultz to come and talk about the Meraki, and then also talk about this issue of some of the filters decrypting the secure HTTPS transactions, which then makes our patrons totally vulnerable if they use any personal information.
You want Kevin to come back to you, that's what you're asking?
I would, address those two issues, and maybe you could by then look at the program that you were.
And I could ask the other guy to Zoom, he lives there.
Or maybe, yeah, you better have us do it.
Maybe, I could ask,
I'm sure Kevin will zoom in,
Or-
because it'll be in his.
yeah,
Okay, or maybe we can connect the two of them.
yeah, and they can talk, and then
And then if you can.
why don't I just give Kevin his number and let Kevin call him? That takes time off the plate of.
Perfect, and then let's specifically address that one issue, the.
Yeah, that's
security.
rocky, and I don't know if this other software has that same issue or not.
Right, but yeah, I think those need to be addressed so we can protect.
What are you, so I know.
So with that email that I sent you right on the bottom. There was like a, number 11,
Oh,
the
yes,
effects of decryption.
sorry, I've got Kevin's memo here, yeah,
Okay, yeah, so you've got that, you've got
okay,
that, I just,
yeah. I'll put that specifically in there,
thank you.
that him and Kevin need to talk about that.
So we'll go ahead and move on and discuss internet stuff next time. The Child Supervision Committee update, do you guys have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking to Laura Streetman about the foster grandparent program, and she was reaching out to people to see if they had any extra volunteers who could do it, and at this point, they don't. So she said she could keep them updated.
I'm gonna go ahead and take that off of our agenda, and if you guys want to continue to work on that in the background, that's perfectly fine. I don't think it needs board consideration. You did send out a document about record retention. We didn't get to it last time. You left. It was a local government retention schedule. Did you hear back from Julie about videos or audio recordings?
No, so I emailed her last week. And really, the guidelines haven't changed, and this, I mean, the current guidelines were updated in May of 2022. And, you know, basically, that summary I have for you is what applies to the board.
Okay.
And the video recordings, there's nothing in the guidelines about retention of video recording. It's really just the official minutes. So a video recording is not the official minutes of the meeting,
Okay.
so.
But it is something that's
But I
way.
don't think it's-
Since Commissioner Jones is here, I mean, you guys put your meetings up online immediately after they're done.
They're published, they're on Zoom, so they're immediately published.
Just upload it to YouTube. That's
Yeah,
fine.
it's sometimes a little bit of lag, it takes maybe a day at most, I think, but
But Julie does that, or who does that?
we do it right there. So on Zoom, you just push publish, and I mean, when you're
Why
done.
don't we do that?
Well,
Why don't we just?
That's letter G. Continuing our discussion about minutes and Zoom, and I wanted her to go over that records retention. Because you made a comment about how our minutes are the actual, or I shouldn't say actual, it is our permanent record of what transpired during the meeting. So,
and that really goes to, like, how long do you guys, do the commissioners retain video recordings?
Once they're published, they're on YouTube forever. You can
Forever.
go search by date. Now, I will tell you that we have a topic on our agenda, because we do record it. We record it and we have written minutes. And we do Zoom, and there are at least one commissioner, I think, is questioning Zoom. I love Zoom, because it's bare, it's there, and it doesn't, and it's published, and it's completely transparent. I like it. But we'll see how that discussion goes.
What's the cost to, put stuff up to YouTube?
Nothing,
It's free.
Free, okay,
it's completely free. And it's so easy, it's just done.
nice.
And I think that's a way better, current, kind of project, but that is me, and I may not win that discussion, but that I like it because of the transparency.
There is a bill that's going in, there is a bill that's going into the session about the fact is that they will do some limitations as to executive or legislative intent when the stuff goes for discovery with the inevitable lawsuits. Which is huge. Yeah, which is gonna be a limitation of some sort, because they have to, because you can't use just verbal interpretations or inflections and things like that. You can use the written, you can only use supposedly the written record, what transpired, not the actions taken.
Yeah.
And you know about that because of your background.
Well, Madam Chair, I mean, we had a pretty long discussion last meeting about this, and, I was always in favor of taking pretty extensive minutes because I wanted to provide a full record for, the people who wanted to see what we discussed and why we discussed it. And I think that I'm totally fine with taking the bare bones, minutes, but that was contingent upon the fact that we would put it up online, and it seemed
I
like.
didn't recall that it was contingent on whether we have our videos accessible.
Oh,
I will explain, we used to have somebody that was not a board member do the minutes and they were extensive. The reason why we went to minimalistic is because a board member is now taking the minutes and we wanted to make sure that they have the opportunity to participate rather than frantically try to capture everything.
no, but it seemed like that there was general agreement on the fact that more transparency was a good thing, not a bad thing, especially given that it's free and literally a push of a button. I don't know why that is a bad thing, to give the public more access to
I'm gonna give
our
you
discussions.
my minutes should be exactly on what transpired, not in any characterizations or articulations of that. And it really is, that is the record.
Mhm.
The record is not for information except for what transpired in the action.
It's in motion.
Discussion, it's nobody's hiding anything by saying discussion occurred. That's what these are all supposed to be. And it's my 60 years of being in business, legislatures and everything else. That's the only way you do it. If you're in the journalistic side of things, it certainly would be the natural organic nature of things to have all information. But the problem is that we also have the problem of whether a person is good or bad, or being able to do recording of notes in that fashion that you're speaking of, that has the potential of being inherently distorted. And I'm just telling you, this is what is the history of it.
Yeah, no, I'm not arguing for.
But all I'm gonna tell you is
Have
that.
both, have a record.
But
and-
to me, everything that we do here is subject to legal issue. Mike knows it from anything he does with his outfit. We think it's a poo-poo idea, but it's not. Everything has a legal consequence. So I'm going to only suggest that we do it correctly, do it to an accepted standard. And that accepted standard is available. It isn't to pick and choose, but the options that we have, we use Neiman journalism, the Chicago style, or any of the other ones that are available. Everybody says Roberts, but Roberts is on the process of conducting the meeting, not recording the meetings, even though there's a section in Roberts that talks about it. We should be consistent in that. And I'm a champion of the idea that we have to buy the modern world of recording. So if we do have things that can be subject to legal interpretation, everything else, forget that. Just for the general public, they should be able to access what is the current need, which is, I'm an advocate for that. But I am for having terse, concise, what transpired, the actions taken, and not a verbatim.
Yeah, that's very fine.
I would, I'm gonna make a motion, but before that, I think, we already have in our board policy and procedures, how we're gonna do the minutes. So separate from that, I would move that we upload our Zoom meeting to YouTube routinely.
I will second.
Yeah, a second.
It has been moved and seconded to upload our Zoom recordings to YouTube. Discussion.
So that is live.
Yes.
Yes, so
Yes.
when we do that, people can just come in and watch the proceeding, you don't have to visit the room, so making sure everybody understood, that's live, and when you publish, then you're just placing it there permanently. You've got a place for people to go, okay,
Right.
but it is a place people can tune into and watch.
Correct. And that's always published on the agenda.
Okay.
It has the link on there every month.
Okay, perfect, yeah.
Real
So
simple.
Yeah, it's not the same.
It is.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna make my feelings known. I'm not a fan of having it on YouTube. However, I actually would like to see a current video of a meeting on our website rather than YouTube. And then when we have a new meeting, a new one comes up in its place. That's That's what I would like to see.
Well, we can post the meeting to our YouTube channel and take it down.
Oh, you have a YouTube channel?
There's a.
Okay. I see what you're doing.
Well, we don't.
You can traffic on your website, but it's the county website, or county library website. You want to make it so.
Well, yeah, we can have a link. Yes, they have a link.
I think in this age of really cheap information, I don't see why we would take it down. I mean, there's occasionally I've gone back where, you know, I'm kind of worthless and I travel a lot, and there's times I've gone back to the county commissioner meetings 2 months before going, wait a minute, you know, how did that start or whatever, you know, and it's kind of. I find that helpful to have it. I mean, if it's gonna be up there, I would just get up there and leave it up there.
I would personally agree with that as well.
I agree. Any other discussion?
I think the mechanics of it, if it's possible to do it real time, which is what the commissioners do and we do here. I think it makes sense for us to not have the issue of having the commissioner transcription and native proceedings that would not for the public consumption. But we'll do that physical removal of ourselves. That'll be a policy I think we'll incorporate. So that we don't have those possibilities of leakage of things that way. But I'm not here to knock what Marla's talking about. It's the idea that I wouldn't make it change. I think that it's the idea that our minutes should be what they should be. The idea of this, I don't see any linkage. It's a case of the public should feel that they have the avenue to see what transpires in all forms of government. Doing that. I don't think it's important.
All right, so we've Perry moved.
She did, to upload our Zoom meetings to YouTube.
It was seconded.
I second. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay, those in favor of the motion to upload our Zoom meetings to YouTube, say aye.
I
Those opposed? And I'm opposed. All right.
And then, Marty, just so you know, you don't have to say who seconded, but you do have to put out the oppositions in there.
Yeah. No, I.
And I oppose. All right, moving on to new business director proposal for Du Bois branch manager, a part-time position. Anita, you mentioned it in the report.
Right.
So hopefully everybody had a chance to
Yes.
look at that.
Right, and really, I tried to put everything in there, so.
The history and, yep,
Yeah, and so really, you know, our budget can't support a full-time manager, and actually.
not just the budget, but the duties
Right.
for a full time.
I think this is a very good solution to, just change our lead librarian's position to a part-time lead voice manager, because just for all the reasons that I listed, it, will provide that position with, just the authority, the on-site person to deal with, you know, staff issues, building issues.
Budgetary.
Yeah, budget, patron issues.
Mr. Du Bois?
Yeah.
But so far as that makes it stand the issue. I think that this is a reflection of something that is an acknowledgement of the longstanding inferiority complex that Mike knows about Du Bois. I live there, I'm saying it as a fact, and that is that because of the building being, you know, the history built and everything else was zoomed into the county system and everything else. So there's always the chip on the shoulder. I think this is just a good response to say we acknowledge it. I don't think it's going to be operationally that much different, but I think as long as it doesn't break the bank on our numbers for that branch, I think it makes sense to do so. But it's reflective of the fact is we have people are more inclined to stay mad. If you give them no reason to stay mad, maybe none of this shit.
And the friends talk to us, the Du Bois friends came and talked to us, and I think that will help, you know, but go ahead, Harry.
So I think two issues with this. One, I think it's a great idea. To me, to have somebody from Riverton or Lander have to drive all the way to Du Bois to deal with stuff is, you know, that's 3 hours of wasted time on the road doesn't make sense fiscally for me. The way you have it, it doesn't cost very much at all. I mean, additional, like $5 or $10.
$100 over our current salaries budget, Mike.
Yeah,
Or,
man.
Which,
Clarence is gonna have a hissy fit.
So we're actually coming out way ahead because all those hours of, driving over there are being saved, so it's way more productive. The one thing I would recommend is that you build into their training time
Oh, yeah.
so that, their job description is really clear, but also that you take the time with these people to, to actually make sure they're well trained. And it's hard with our short staff, but I think that's crucial to it working well.
Everything Perry said, I agree with, and I'd just like to add that I think now is the right time to make this change because of Sherry's retirement. It resets the system so that when the new Riverton manager comes in, you already have taken, it's not a big change after they just get used to something. It's a good time.
and actually training, so I mean, our lander manager is a new manager,
Right.
the Du Bois. If you approve this, that's the new manager and we'll see what, and yeah, in Riverton, even if it's a seasoned person.
Still a new manager.
Still, yeah, new. Yeah, everything. So there will be a lot of, actually, this group training tonight
Good.
as well as.
Yeah, and again, because we've been over this for the last, the last 3 years that I was on the board. I think having all this written down so that, because if they get the brain dump, they're not gonna remember anything, so that we have all of that training, written down and.
And actually, with Rachel, I've got she has an individual development plan. That's pretty.
Great.
And she's working on that.
Yes. And yeah,
Cool.
I have nothing to add. I agree.
Do we need to approve this?
yeah, and then it goes to the commission to approve.
So I would motion to approve, Anita's proposal for the Du Bois branch manager part-time position.
Second.
Any other further discussion?
No,
Go ahead, Mike.
just have a question now. Go ahead.
Okay, those in favor of, having Anita go to the county commissioners, for the purpose of getting a director for the Du Bois branch.
Your manager.
Or branch manager, part-time manager, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Mike?
If I can have a question, so you're saying this is overall $100 increase to the budget? Oh, yeah, so just to prepare for Clarence,
How did that accomplish?
so you're gonna reduce your gas budget by $100?
If we could get into the nitty gritty, but gosh, so we plan some like retirement payouts every year in our budget.
Yeah.
So Sherry's retirement payout won't be quite as much as what was budgeted. And they're just all the different changes.
You're probably gonna come in on
Yes, this
it.
year.
Overall, you're really.
Overall, this year, I remember.
So you're stepping in Du Bois then would be 2 people.
Well, so currently we have 3. We have our lead librarian, we have a part-time, and there was actually, when you were gone, there was a request to retire that we missed. But so we've got actually 3 library staff
Okay.
and our part-time custodian who's not back to
Okay,
Yeah.
so
So 2.
what's the difference, I guess, in my mind, and this is the kind of questions we're gonna have.
Sure.
What's the difference between the lead librarian and the manager? What does that give them the ability to do that?
They have more, the manager has more authority in dealing with staff issues. I mean, they
Okay.
really are.
A supervisor.
Yeah, more supervisor. They've got, the manager has. Oh, I think it must have,
Would you, Madam Chair, would you agree that what is being kind of articulated by our directors is that there'll be more site-based decision making that will be accorded to the individual out there, which would in best case affect less supervision required.
and be more efficient.
Yeah.
And the
So-
manager,
That's
the
fine.
manager does make hiring.
So, Anita, if you would, your proposal, could you send it to me
Sure.
before we take it into, commission, just so I can
Answer questions.
I can at least prepare for questions I anticipate. I'm for
And then
it.
she can let me know
It sounds,
what those questions.
it sounds reasonable to me. I'm for it. But I wanna
Sure.
prepare for the kinds of questions I expect.
And actually, you did get this in,
Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the 30 pages you sent me, correct?
yeah, it's the.
Sure, I memorized it and forgot about it.
How about I send it to you, just that one document.
That would be,
With a little addendum on there specifically why this is gonna be a more efficient use of the
Yeah.
library.
yeah, it makes sense. Okay.
Okay, the next new business, we are getting close to noon and I wanted to make sure we get out of here. You people have places to go. I think we're gonna table the Riverton branch, comments on safety till next time.
And, you and I had talked about maybe meeting with Commissioner Thomas.
To find out
To have him articulate more clearly,
what his safety
specifically
issues.
what. yes, what his
So we will table that discussion.
Make the conversation.
Yeah.
With Commissioner Thomas's remarks in regards to safety and the other auxiliary elements that he offered. Were reflected with Thomas only and not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't feel that's fine.
Oh, definitely. Great. Any other comments? We are adjourned and it is 11:50.
Part of the agenda will be an action item.
Yeah, so our action items, I wrote down several of them. In December, we'll talk about collection development, what that process looks like.
Hey, hey.